Yes. Well, I'm going to go with a team who just does things totally differently, guys. And we all know who I'm going to be talking about. We can't let them keep getting away with this. The Vegas Golden Knights. And by the way, if you're listening to this, head over to our Instagram page and check out our most recent reels. Some of them. One has 17,000 plays at this point, and it was the Jesse Pinkman meme of saying, you can't keep getting away with this. And it's Vegas, like acquiring Noah Hannafin. And that was before they even got Thomas Hertl. Like it's crazy. But just to go through their ins and outs here, they got 6'5" forward Anthony Mantha, 6'3" defenseman Noah Hannafin, and 6'3" forward Thomas Hertl. So they got a great middle six forward, who, by the way, has 20 goals already this year. They got a top six center in Hertl for the next 6 years at 17% retained, which is great. Like, I just can't believe that they got retention on a deal that has 6 more years left. And they got a legit top four defenseman. And they really, like, all things considered, they really didn't pay that much for the stability that they now have going forward. They traded David Edstrom, who, by the way, Harp, we had a bit of confusion about this last episode, center from the SHL. Yeah. We called him a defenseman at first and corrected it. 2025 first, a 2026 first, a 2024 second, a conditional 2024 third that upgrades to a 2025 second if Vegas wins around this year. So probably call it a second. They have to get into the playoffs first, but call it a second. And a 2026 fourth. So really, like, you give up a prospect who you picked 32nd overall or whatever last year, who's not going to help you for a long time, a couple first round picks that, let's be real, aren't going to help you for a long time, and a few other picks that probably will never help you because they're not even in the first round. And what you get in return is 3 impactful roster players who do more than just one thing. They are all physical. They can all produce offense. It's just, this team doesn't do things simply. They don't do things the same way as other teams, and we can't keep letting them get away with it. Boys, what do you think about Vegas and their deadline?
Man, the fact that they were able to get a team to retain 17% of a 6 more year contract is beyond me. And
bonkers.
Not paying an arm and a leg for it. That trade was a first, which is going to be, if they make the playoffs, it's probably going to be pick like 30. And if they don't win the cup again. Mm-hmm. And David Edstrom, who was a first round pick late last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, last year.
Okay,
yeah,
I had that right. Like, that's all they gave up. And then they got 2/3 back, as well as Tomas Hertl, who no one knew was available.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking about all the big fish. I don't think TSN had them on their trade bait list. Obviously, no. San Jose is looking to sell, but they have this guy locked up at a good price for a long time. No one thought he was going anywhere. And out of nowhere, Vegas picks him up. And this is after Mantha and Hannafin. We were already like, damn, like, I can't believe Vegas is getting away with this again. And they brought in her. Like, that's
ridiculous.
Crazy to me. I also think that they are a winner of the trade deadline. I just knew someone else would take them. Like, this is ridiculous.
The cap shenanigans that have to go on to make sure that this team can play is ridiculous. And the cap shenanigans that are going to have to go on in the off season to, the big decisions that are going to have to be made about whether or not you re-sign some players or who you keep or like what pieces you move around. Like, it's insane. No other team in the league operates like this, and it's so fun. I love it.
It is.
Today's cap hit $98.6 million.
God. And the big thing to mention about that cap hit is a lot of those guys on LTIR will actually be playing for the team in the playoffs, as opposed to teams like Toronto and Tampa, who have more LTIR space being used, but those players won't ever play again. In Toronto's case, it's, Klingberg and Matt Murray and, guys like that. So and Jake Muzzin. It's just different. It's different money. And that's why it's so crazy for Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. Vegas, baby. Like what else is there to say? Like no one has been this aggressive. Like we've never seen this before, and it is a lot of fun, you know. And look, we can choose to come on here and do this podcast and complain about how, you know, it's unfair and Vegas is doing all these things and using LTIR and guys aren't really hurt. Blah blah blah. We can get into all the conspiracy theories, but you know. The reality is, like, a couple of things. The NHL does look into this and does investigate this. I truly believe that. And you know, and the thing is, like, there's the argument there that in the playoffs, like, the salary cap should exist, but there are like the risk for injuries is so much greater, and so you run into that problem too with injuries with a salary cap, and having to worry about being cap compliant in the playoffs would just be a nightmare. And then the third thing is as well, think about our three teams, guys. If we were in that position, like, I don't know about you two, but I would want my team to do the same thing.
No kidding.
To make it better, and you know, and make them a Stanley Cup contender by any means necessary. Like that's what it's all about. And you know, I heard Kelly McCrimmon the other day on Jeff Merrick's radio show, and he kind of said, like, you know, we're different in terms of, like, we're aggressive by trading our draft picks, and like a lot of the players that we've gotten, we've acquired them. And then he compared them to the Tampa Bay Lightning, who became very aggressive in a different way. You look at how they won their cups. It's all guys that they drafted, and then they became aggressive later on. So there's a bit of a difference there, but it's so much fun. And when I saw when they were, you know, getting ready to, like, when Gord Miller and the rest of the panel on TSN were teeing up that deal, well, Vegas is doing it again. You're not going to believe this, blah, blah, blah. I thought for sure it was Pavel Buchnevich going to the Golden Knights, but it ends up being Hertl, 6 more years at just over 8.1, and the deal, the retention, all of it, I couldn't see it at all. And
well, yeah, they get him for 6.75 for the next 6 years. I mean, he'll be 36 at the end of it, but man, I think that's a bet you're willing to take, that for the next, you know, 4 to 5 years, you get prime Hertl still.
For sure.
So
if he can, you know, and he's been banged up, and hopefully he can get back this season and contribute. But the other thing, it's like, what are the Sharks doing? Like with the retention on Hertl for that amount of term, and let's not forget either, like, they retained $1.5 million on the remaining term of Erik Karlsson's contract too. Like that, those are big commitments in terms of retention, a lot of term there. I don't know, guys.
I think if there's any team that can do it, it's the San Jose Sharks, because they expect themselves to be bad for 4 or 5 more years here.
Yeah, that's true.
And I have the number here too. Like for the next 2 seasons, it's 5.6 in total retention, but then after that it drops to 2.8. So like,
okay,
you know, and it's not crazy. And then, like, you know, 2027, 28, when they're expected to be at a level of competing for the playoffs, it goes down to 1.3. And by then that'll be league minimum. So,
okay, fair enough. You know. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
It is curious, though, because no other team in the league wants to retain for that long. But like Kay said, I think San Jose is just entering their full teardown, and they're not going to be competitive for a while. So I get it.
Yeah, exactly.